Hey guys, and welcome back. All right, it's time to take a look at what we have going on for this week. So let's get right into it. First one up is NEPT. So this is one that was on the watch list last week, and ended up not doing anything with this week. It sort of has this volatile pattern where it pushes up pretty aggressively, here, and then sells off. It doesn't really like maintain that momentum. It's sort of like a one and done day usually. I mean, here there's a little bit of a follow through, but yeah, overall, I mean, it definitely has an uptrend pattern. But you can see that, if you look at these lows, like this low here is at 365, this low 387, this low 4, like they're getting tighter and tighter. So, and I don't love, what the MACD looks like here either. So, this is on there, but definitely not something that I'm that excited about. Next one is AM. Again, one that I have some interest in watching, but not something that I'm chomping in the bit to take a position on here. As you can see, it was showing a nice pattern right here. So from, back in April or March, sort of through this area, it was looking pretty good. And like this right here would have been, you could have potentially looked at a break above the EMA right here. It actually bounced off the EMA there, which is good. If somebody was, actually right here would have been the one that would have got you. So, it broke above the EMA, made about a 5% gain. So this would have been okay, but then it sort of, very little momentum, sort of peaked out and then sold off, broke below the EMA, broke below the SMA. And then since then, it's sort of been horizontal to down. So this is one that I'm not that interested in right now. I'm going to take that off the list. The next one we got here is PSTG. So this one looks decent. So certainly there's a pattern of uptrend right here. Made a new high, had resistance at around 20, $26, $27. Had another resistance around 28.70, and then unfortunately it you would have liked to have seen it sort of break around the 27.80 and turn back up. It sort of did take a bit of a sell off there, but you can look and see it sort of approaching the SMA line right here, 180 SMA. It's definitely definitely oversold on the RSI. The MACD is not really showing us much of a signal yet. We had a couple of buy signals here where it sort of tried, right here, sort of tried, and then, kind of got, just kind of continued to consolidate. So, I have my alert set at the EMA line, right here at $25, $25.50. I'll probably also set one, let's see here. I'll set it below, for a break down, because then you can forget about it. Okay. Next one is CY. This one's been in kind of a horizontal pattern. So you can see I have these two resistance lines that have been pretty well established. High of 18, lows around 14, and it sort of works its way up and down and up and down and up and down. The thing that worries you a little bit about this one is what happened here recently. So, didn't quite make this high again, sort of a lower high, a lower high. So we're actually starting to see, a downtrend right here. And then it broke below, it consolidated at around $14, and then it broke below at the end of the week last week. So I still have my alert set at 14.21. I'm probably going to move that up because at this point we're sort of seeing a downtrend. And even though it was fairly consistently following this pattern, it sort of broke that pattern right here last week. And so it makes it a little bit more risky in my opinion. All right, the next one is TEVA. So same sort of thing. In the last few weeks, we got into this horizontal pattern, up, down, up, down, up, down, not really making new highs necessarily, but approaching this level of support, which it created here at around $21. If we go in a little bit further, let's go to the 20-day 1 hour here. You can see the consolidation here, sort of testing the $22 mark and selling back off to 21, testing 22, selling off to 21, breaking a little bit. So, it'll test 22 again, and I would like to see it break that level of resistance that it's shown over the last few days, to make me feel, and you probably would see that the SMA start to make a higher or point in the up direction, but certainly a little bit on the oversold side. MACD, sort of indicating that it might be turning, but again, it sort of turned back down here. So we'll see. This is one to keep. I think we traded this one 2 weeks ago and made a little bit of money on it, but nothing crazy. All right, GoPro. So this is one that I made a little bit of money on 2 weeks ago on this move here. It sort of consolidated. So let me go back out to the 180-day chart here. So this is really a horizontal pattern. I'm only going to take this pattern right here is a stretch. Really what it is it sort of has resistance levels around $7, and it has decent support levels around $6. So not a ton of margin there, but you can see that we are sort of approaching the $6 mark again. And so this is one that I'm just keeping an eye on. If you were to get in when let's say we set our alert at the SMA, for example, that SMA to that old level of resistance is about 15%. So, could be good if you took that and it did push all the way back up, and then you'd sort of be risking 2 to 3% in the negative. Certainly, it's not showing any signs that it's reversing yet, and given the overall pattern and the fact that it really has dipped down to closer to $5 at times, I would wait on this one to see if it makes it turn the other direction. All right, CALM. This one's a little bit interesting. It had this huge sell-off right here last week, all the way from where it was sitting at 48 down to 43 on some news earnings report. And it's done that before. It has a big sell-off, consolidates, and then pushes back up. Big sell-off, consolidates, pushes back up. So, if anything, we're at the beginning of sort of a consolidation period here. I have my alert set at the EMA, the 15 EMA on the 180-day chart. So it's got a ways to go before it, 40, about $1 of margin there before I would even consider looking at it. But if you look at the technicals here, the RSI is definitely oversold after this huge sell-off, which is not unexpected. The MACD is sort of turning, and you're about to have a crossover right here. So if it hits this and starts to on the intraday starts to look interesting, then the volume on the intraday is okay. You've got some minutes here where there's very little volume action, very little price action, and if you go to the 20-day, 20-day here, you see our big sell-off here, and if we look intraday, not a lot of movement, so just a lot of consolidation, not really doing anything, and on the 20-day, not really showing any momentum in the direction that we'd be looking for. So that's why I have my alert set where it is. On the 20-day, that alert correlates kind of with the 50 EMA, so something to keep an eye on. All right, CISN. Let's go back to our 180-day chart. So this one is interesting. It's got a nice uptrend pattern right here, as you can see. The only thing that worries me about it is that we had a new high at 1688, a new high at 1729, a new high at 1828, sort of a double top right here at $18, and then a pretty aggressive sell-off. So it sort of tested that level, pushed back up to a lower high of 1732, and then sold off again. So the SMA is sort of flat, but really to me this looks like it's sort of a downtrend. And you kind of had a double bottom here at the like $16 price point. So that's the test, right? So it hit $16, it hit $16 again. It started to make some green candles here. Will it break back up? And the most, because here, you're looking at about a 50% recovery, and I think it might be on the way down. From that point, to get to 50% recovery, the percent profit is like 2% with a lot of loss. So we'll see. I'd like to see it. You almost want to see it break this old level of resistance, and then you think it might, then if you're hitting here, you've got more like 6% to play with. So we'll see. Not at the top of my list. This one is interesting. So this is SNE, Sony. So a solid company that it is definitely on an uptrend. So there's no question about that. It made new high of $60 and then $61, sold off, sort of a double bottom right here. And now it's a little bit sold off on the RSI. MACD definitely oversold on the MACD, starting to try to make its way back up. So I have my alert set at 58. This is at the EMA, and then let's see what we did yesterday. So kind of a big sell-off and a recovery. So let's do this. Let's do a Fibonacci here. So we can get into this in another video, but Fibonacci extension here. So we'll go from the low, high, back down. The 68, so the 61.8 Fibonacci is at 59, and the hundreds at 61. So on this, because it came all the way back down, you're really looking at like your profit would be sort of, you wouldn't necessarily, it broke that pattern of like new low, high low, high low. It's a similar low here. And so because of that, the sort of projected price targets, you're really looking at back at the same high. And so if you got in at 58, you'd be looking at a potential gain of, oh, whoops. Gotta get out of the, let's go back to our line here. So, at 58, you really would be locking in around 61 at about 5%. And then your percent loss is about 2. So not, the 2 to the 4 to 1, 5 to 1 that I like to see on these, but certainly an overall uptrend pattern. Just really would have liked to have seen this low been at like 57 or 58 or something like that, like right here, because then you'd be looking at your Fibonacci would probably put you out at $62 or something like that. So didn't get there, so we'll have to see. SQ is a little expensive for me. I have it on the watch list, but a little expensive. And then TNDM, this is one that I looked at a couple of weeks ago that we talked about. And so the thing that worries you about this one is definitely was working its way up. Not a lot of big swings on the way up, but definitely was working its way up. And then had, hit this level 52, had a big sell-off down to SMA, bounced off the SMA, and then didn't recover all the way back to that high. And so that's why you're seeing the SMA start to sort of flatline, like it's sort of starting to turn back in the other direction. Now on the technical side, it's definitely oversold, right? Definitely oversold on the RSI here. The MACD looks really nice. There's no real sign yet that it's peaking on the MACD. But what I would like to see is for it to retest the SMA here and break it. So that's where I have my alert set, $40. Test the SMA, previous level support, act as new resistance, and you've definitely got this indicator right here where it bounced, which is not exactly on the SMA, but pretty close. So I would look at this, the $40 mark essentially as a new level of resistance. I would not be surprised if it hits and then sells off again. And from this point, so sometimes you look at the EMA here and you're like, oh, it's crossed the EMA, it's on its way back up, but that's not the point on this one because the overall trend is in the other direction. So, if you buy here, the most you're looking at to test that is, you're talking about like maybe 10%, but the downside is 5%. So that's 2 to 1. So I don't love that. So what I'd like to see is that, it breaks the SMA and starts to look like it's going to make an uptrend. Because then you're talking about, if you're just going to retest its previous level, you're talking about 20%. And, you can set your stop where you set it. So that's what I have on my list for this week. Just going into positions that I have right now. Not a great day on Friday. DGAS was on there. Was up maybe $20 on DGAS, and then it sort of consolidated down a little bit. I still like the let me go to DGAS here. I still like how oversold it is, but definitely the trend is not in my favor. So I have a stop set here at 14, basically at the break of $15. I'd love to see it push another 2 or 3%. I would probably, given that it's working its way down. Here is resistance. Here is resistance. If it recovers, to $17, I'll probably sell. And that's only a profit of 5%, but it's just not, the overall pattern's not great. Probably shouldn't have gone into that one. And then DDDD was also not great on Friday. Again, just not, it definitely, was working its way up. I probably got in a little early, which is something that I'm working on. It looked like, okay, it's hitting the SMA here and starting to turn, but you can see the last day it started to turn. It didn't quite make it to the EMA, which is what I should have waited for. I should have waited for like 18. Got in here, had a pretty big sell-off, consolidated, and now it's hanging out at 17. So I still like this to potentially, definitely was oversold. MACD looks decent. So I like this one to push back up, but, would have liked to avoid, in terms of targets, probably looking at, let's see, from here, maybe going to try to go for 5% with my stop set at 2%. Just because I worry about the overall trend here. Would have liked to have seen this been here, right? So it made a new low, or a low high at $20, whereas before it pushed to 22. Now it's working its way back down. So, similar proportion of rebound. It may only make, 50 cents here and then sell off again. So if I can capture that, recover some of the loss here, I'm sitting down $94 on the open. So not in a great position there either, but that's okay. Still up 1,600 over the last couple of weeks, so that's not too bad. I think that's everything. That's what I got on my list. So I didn't do a video over the weekend. I was in St. Louis at meetings, but I will follow these things tomorrow, and we should have a recap tomorrow night to see kind of if any of these things play out. And if not, that's fine. There's no urgency, and the goal is just to 3 to 5% a week is a great goal right now for me. I did actually transfer from my Acorn account about $1,000 into use stock trade. So getting set up, it's not there yet, so I don't have the capital yet, but getting set up for the real deal. So I don't know if that's going to happen middle of this week. Maybe next week will be the beginning of the use stock trade live account. So I'm excited about that, and so we'll see what goes on this week.